Hey, welcome to the Integrate This EdTech Podcast. We are continuing our Tech in 10 series on the Eduaide platform. We've covered a couple different things, including their dashboard and the different materials that you can create within that platform. In this video in the series, we're going to take a look at the workspace features that you can find in Eduaide. And there's some interesting stuff here that they offer that I haven't really seen anywhere else. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is my different workspace items that I have opened. So there's a bunch of tabs that are up at the top, and I have those open because I want to show you a couple different things with this. But really, whenever you're creating things, or if you go to your history section, you actually can open these up whenever you would like to. So this is kind of where the things you've created get stored. And when you go to your actions for a certain item, you can do a couple different things there, but mainly we're going to do open, and that's going to bring us into this workspace that they've created for us. Now, in these, when you create things, you're going to be using those features that Jeremy showed in the generator space, where you put in, the name, the standards, maybe those type of things that you want to have in there, and to create your initial documents. And in this workspace area, this is where you'll get to see them. One of the things that you can do right away is, in this case, we have a lesson seed that we've created from the generator, and it's on the Cold War. So what I did was I put in, using the generator space, I would have gone in here and I would have put in my topic or main idea. And this was on World War II, it was on the Cold War, and specifically for 10th grade. And so you could do this with any of yours. But when you do that, you have some buttons on the left-hand side here that I'm going to show you a few things with. But you'll also notice that a lot of platforms, like thinking of Google Gemini with their Canvas feature, what I really like is this shift from just the general creation of something and then modifications through prompting. But now, in addition to modifications through prompting, you have this space where you can actually make edits manually. And so what you're seeing here is just that space to do that. And so you'll see like the whole lesson seed is all produced here. And then when you click on it, you're going to have these formatting options that are up here. One thing that I like is this ability, depending on what it is this ability to toggle the name and date on and off, very similar to what you'd see in a traditional worksheet. So if you're creating, not for this one, for a lesson plan, but if you're creating things that you're going to eventually export and print off for students, you'd be able to toggle that on to add to the sheet, which is kind of a cool little feature that I found. You can also do a lot of your normal, Google Docs style things with the formatting throughout this whole toolbar. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can explore there. Then you'll notice here too that there's a save to class option. I'll show that briefly at the end, but you can create classes and it basically treat them as folders where you can store things for your specific classes as a teacher. And for any of these documents that you create, you can also use the export button, and you have a couple options there. One is to copy to the clipboard, and then you could paste that somewhere. 2 is to export it as a PDF. 3 as a Word doc, or you can also connect it to Google Drive, and then that would be connected to your Google Docs. Now, when you're here, I mentioned this toolbar on the left-hand side. So from anything that you are in, you can create new things off of. You can create a new resource. And so this brings you into basically that section where Jeremy was covering in the previous video, where you see all the same things and you can create stuff off of this. So in this case, if we're looking at like our lesson seed, well, what if I wanted to create like some vocab off of this or something like that? So I could go and I could click vocabulary list, and what will happen is it will be in relation to the content that you originally started from. So you'll notice that in here, I've got this standard that I pulled in directly from that creation point. So think of it as start with creating something from that generator space. And then what we're doing is we're creating additional things off of the workspace item. So just to take a step back, we create in the generator, then we use our workspace where it is created to create new things that complement what we originally created. So again, if we go and we choose the vocabulary list and we see where we're creating off of, you have the ability to make some adjustments to that. One of the most interesting things I think about this is the ability to either create a new document so it's by itself, like this vocabulary list, or they have this option where you can add it to the document, which is I think is really interesting because then it gets paired with what you create from the start. And in some cases, that's going to make more sense. And I'll show you what that looks like. But we could create a new document if we want to, and it's going to generate that vocabulary for uh, in relation to that lesson seed document that we created. So again, just creating new things off of that. The other thing is to adapt your document. So here, I'm just going to show you if we looked at something like our exam option. So with this, I created an exam. And one of the things that sets Eduaide apart a little bit too is this ability to differentiate the item that you're working with. So you'll notice that you'll still have this same create new document or add to the current document in here. But when we create the exam, you have a bunch of differentiation tools at your disposal over here where you can, for one, you can add in different questions if you want to. You can add in new questions. You can explore the grading support. So in this case, you could generate things like an answer key. And with my tabs, I've done that. So like here, you're going to see the answer key that complements this exam. And you can kind of see here too, the tabs get a little bit hidden in their like the title for it, but you can see it right here too. So we have our exam. Here's the title. You have the exam answer key on those. So you can create these things instantly after you've generated your exam. Then you can look at things like complexity. And so here I'll show you an example of that. With something like a reading passage, you can make it create a reading passage for you. So in this case, sticking with our theme, we have the Cold War and overview. And then what you can do is you can summarize that text, chunk it, you can increase the Lexile or decrease the Lexile, and you can have it produce a new passage with an enhanced Lexile in this example. But that's something you can play around with where you're modifying the complexity of the text, or maybe you're decreasing the Lexile level for that. But this ability to do it instantly is really, really great. The other thing is you can do study skills. So you can create study like guides and different things like that off of here. Let me see if I can find. We did a study guide right here. So off of the lesson, I created a study guide. So going back to our lesson seed, right? All I did was ask it to create a study guide in a new document. So I clicked create new document, did study guide. And what that did was create the study guide here that I could then deliver to my students by using that export button to get it to a PDF or a Word doc or any of those options. The other thing that you can do is you can create things like flashcards as well. So here we've got where I created some flashcards and we have our text for the front and back of the cards. Then we get into the translate option, which is really cool. So all I did for this one is we created the study guide off of the lesson. Once I had the study guide, I created the flashcards off of that same content, and that gave us the flashcards here. Those were all creating new documents, and so we're using this new document option. But then I wanted to take that flashcard text and I wanted to translate it into Spanish. So I did add to document so that it was on the same one, and I put in Spanish. And then what that gave me was this here. For the Spanish, flashcards. Now, one thing I noticed was that when it brought it in, it had a little bit of a struggle with the formatting. It came in really large, and so I had to make an adjustment to that. So one thing you'll maybe find is that as you're creating new things, you might have to, when it's getting put into a new document, just adjust the formatting and play around with that a little bit. The next thing is the ability to revise. And so you can actually use AI to revise things in your document. So that's something you can kind of explore there too. Connects a little bit to Erasmus and how that's used, as Jeremy mentioned in the previous video. And then I want to show you one more thing here, and this is the ability to evaluate. So I'm going to go to our passage here. And you can actually use this. This is in beta. This is a new feature that they've added, but you can go to the grade level evaluator and you can run an evaluation on your document. And it's really pretty cool because once it evaluates what you have, you'll notice here it gives you a little report and it says grade level. What it determined that this was meant for is grades 9 to 10. Then it gives you the ability to, or it says that you can also teach this to 6th through 8th grade, but you're going to want to do some scaffolding. And so what's awesome about this is it'll recommend scaffolds to you. So it says provide guided discussions, simplified summaries, and visual aids to break down complex ideas. And you can actually click the button to create a revised version with those changes to it after the AI has analyzed it and it gives you a revision. So these are all some really, really cool things that Eduaide is doing with the differentiation options and the ability to use that revise tool. And you'll have, if you pay for it, if you use the pro version, you'll have much more free reign to do some of those things. I should mention too that there's going to be some things that are held back unless you are on the pro version, like image generator. That's something that's going to be part of the pro feature. But hopefully this gives you an idea of what you can do with the workspace. I would highly recommend you create an account and explore this for yourself and see all the cool things that you can do with Eduaide.